Birds are the bellwethers, not only of the health of their own populations and habitats, they are indicators of the health of the environment all humans depend on.
And species that are going extinct are going to extinct because the things that they depend on are being degraded.
So the estimates are something between 1.4 and 6 billion birds per year being killed by cats.
And that's going to be ultimately a problem for ourselves. So we sleep in the bed that we make.
Production of immense possibilities is made possible by the generous support of the Earth and Humanity Foundation. Wendy Selden. Rogue Co-ops, a community-centered collaboration among the Ashland Food Co-op, the Grange Co-op, Rogue Credit Union, and the Medford Food Co-op. Cliff Bar and Company, Elizabeth York, and these additional members of the Immense Possibilities Community Builders Circle. And this evening's program is underwritten by a special grant from the Harry and Yvonne Leonard Charitable Foundation.
Welcome to our weekly visit with people who are creating immense possibilities for healthy communities, solutions to all kinds of challenges. There's one way in which most communities are actually quieter than they were when most of us were young. If you stop and listen when you first go out in the morning, you probably won't hear nearly as many birds singing as you once did. The Northwest has an extensive team of scientific professionals and dedicated volunteers working to find out why and to restore this vital sector of nearby wildlife, diverse wildlife. Across the nation, ornithologists have their eyes on about 800 species of birds.
They populate every habitat, from the coastlines and oceans to the forests and deserts. But they are now facing extraordinary pressures. Loss of habitat, global climate change, demands for energy, and the rise of contaminants and invasive species are threatening their future. Birds are the bellwethers, not only of the health of their own populations and habitats, they are indicators of the health of the environment all humans depend on. How do we grasp these profound changes that are occurring? By watching, monitoring, and documenting.
Watching, monitoring, and documenting puts in a nutshell the work of the Klamath Bird Observatory, based in Southern Oregon and often just called KBO. Joining me now are the Executive Director of KBO, John Alexander, as well as Science Director Jamie Stevens. Welcome to you both. Thanks for coming to visit us on Immense Possibilities.
Thanks for having us.
John, tell us the purpose and main activities of KBO.
The Klamath Bird Observatory's mission is to advance bird and habitat conservation through science, education, and partnerships. And our premise is that birds serve as indicators of our environmental well-being, of our social well-being, of our economic well-being. Really a canary in the coal mine approach to thinking about the world around us.
Now, as I've traveled around the world, people associate this region with birds almost entirely, in my experience, because of the Klamath Basin and the national refuges there. In talking to you, I get the sense that you want people to know, yes, that's true, but there's a lot more going on here.
Yeah, and the refuges is a beginning to a wonderful story, in that National Refuge Complex in the Upper Klamath Basin was the first refuge complex that was designated for migratory birds. And so that really recognizes that we need to think about birds throughout their entire life cycle, not just during their breeding season, but we need intact habitats throughout their migration and their wintering grounds. So it is very significant globally with regards to conservation and wildlife refuges.
Jamie, what is the work that you do with Klamath Bird Observatory?
A big part of what I do is ensure that our science is achieving our mission of advancing bird and habitat conservation. And in order for science to do that, it needs to be timely and relevant and used by people who are making decisions. So I work with a lot of partners locally, regionally, and nationally to make sure our science is addressing questions that are going to help us solve some of our most pressing environmental challenges.
I mean, you put tremendous resource into monitoring and data collection and banding birds, and probably some of it isn't fun, a lot of it's tedious, it takes a long time, but it's essential to what you do. Why is that so?
Well, we need to have a good understanding of a couple different things in order to achieve conservation. First, we do long-term monitoring to keep our pulse on how bird populations are doing in general. And then secondly, we study more specifically how birds are responding to different natural or human-caused changes across the environment. And those two things in combination give us the information that we need to make decisions that will better the world.
What factors are at the top of the list of challenging pressures on our bird populations?
So in the long run, our management of our natural resources has interrupted the natural processes that result in resilient landscapes, such as fire and flooding. That now, with issues of climate change putting extra pressure on those systems, are some of the real things that we're addressing as far as management challenges and conservation challenges. And so how can we use birds to understand what things used to be like, but more important, what things are going to be like in the future, and then provide some insight as to how we can bring our landscape back into a more resilient condition.
Talk about cats. I hear more and more about how serious cats, feral and domestic cats, are in bird conservation.
So the estimates are something between 1.4 and 6 billion birds per year being killed by cats. And so that is a substantial thing that's affecting our bird populations.
Does that mean that cat owners need to keep their cats indoors?
That would be the best thing to help reverse that. Then the other thing, in addition to cat owners keeping their cats indoors, is as a society thinking about how to address feral cat colonies.
Among the causes and challenges to bird conservation, where do chemicals rate, particularly herbicides and insecticides?
There's some pesticides that are on the market that really not only are applied to plants, but get into the plants systemically. And so they are affecting birds on a number of different levels, from directly birds ingesting the seeds themselves, but the pesticides are also getting into the pollen and the nectar. And so there's that direct impact. And then in addition to that, the pesticides are affecting the food resources, so the effects on insects. And a lot of that science is just happening now, and I think we're going to see a lot coming out in the next number of years.
There's also really good evidence that birds and healthy bird populations are an alternative to pesticides. Birds as insectivores are pest eaters, and whether they be healthy bird populations in our forests or healthy bird populations in and around our crops, healthy bird populations, it's been demonstrated, result in a need to spray pesticides less.
Youngsters with the right supervision can do really useful work in some of this data collection, yes?
Absolutely, and the amount of time and energy that these interns really volunteer is essential to the work that we do in making it cost-effective and possible.
John, there are people who think that the concern over species extinction can be overblown. They would say that for as long as we've been observing wildlife, species have been going extinct. They come and they go. It's not a great thing. They're not pro-extinction, but it's part of change. What would you say to that point of view?
In the past, large extinction events or large events of climate change have been caused by major events such as a meteor crashing into the earth or major volcanic activities or things like that. Whereas the evidence shows now that this mass extinction rate that we're experiencing, and similarly the climate, the rate at which climate is changing, is more anthropogenically or human caused. And so it is significant. And it is different than what the Earth has naturally experienced.
And how is species conservation tied in very direct ways to our interest as human beings?
We depend on the vital conditions provided to us by our Earth, the same ones that species depend on. And species that are going extinct are going to extinct because the things that they depend on are being degraded. And that's going to be ultimately a problem for ourselves. So we sleep in the bed that we make.
John, your material talks about non-advocacy science delivery. Do you think any work in conservation can be completely non-advocacy?
What we mean by non-advocacy is that we want to bring all parties to the table. And if we do science right, in a transparent way, then no matter what somebody wants to happen with regards to a decision about our natural resources might be, the science should be able to be agreed upon. If we have a methodology that's outlined, if we get it peer-reviewed, if everybody's a part of that transparent process, and we have results from the science, then the results should speak for themselves.
They should, and yet I think about an era in which science seems to become so politicized. And I wonder if you, as a practical matter, have to think a lot about the framing and what you can or can't say in order to remain credible among different constituencies.
And I think you do. And so we take that science, and then the question is, how do we bring that science to bear? And that's where the advocacy question comes in. And so our approach is to use the science to say, if we make this decision, then this will likely happen based on the best available science. And that's a unique thing in this area. It's really important that we have natural resource managers. It's really important that we have natural resource extractors. And it's really important that we have environmental advocates. And they form that pendulum and balance about the way we make decisions. But as important as all of that, it's important that we have good science. So if one decision or another decision is made, we can continue to measure the effects of that.
As a kid, I remember thinking of birders as this eccentric, small number of people doing these odd things here and there. From all I hear, birding is exploding in popularity. What's going on there? What's the shift in appreciation or interest in birds?
I think that as this fast-paced, information-driven world is changing, that people are probably looking for a way to connect back to the earth and connect back to nature. And we're collectors and we're describers by nature. And we've always admired birds because of their flight. We've worshipped birds. We, put birds on our most important government documents. There's birds everywhere. And people are just really getting in touch with birds as a way to kind of connect to the earth. Plus, it's kind of a game. It's a collection game. How many species did I see in my backyard? And so one of the things that we work with in an international capacity is a program called eBird. And we have a local node of eBird called eBird Northwest. And it allows anybody to document the birds that they see in their backyard or anywhere else that they are. And it's the fastest database, biological database, fastest growing biological database in the world. And it's just, talk about immense possibilities. The data that are coming into eBird are incredible. We can model now the probability of occurrence of a handful of species any day of the year in any place in the continent.
So there are thousands of people out there with their smartphones adding to and drawing from the database all the time?
All the time.
What opportunities do you have for volunteers at KBO?
We have volunteer opportunities with regards to getting engaged in citizen science projects and turning your birding habit into a science habit. And so I had mentioned eBird is where birding meets science and contributing to that. We also have public events that we invite the community to help us put on.
If our viewers take away one piece of our conversation today and remember it and retain it, what would you hope it to be?
That birds and their health are inseparably tied to our own health. And that the science, the observation-based science of watching birds and listening to the stories that they tell us and using what we learn from them to make better decisions on behalf of the world that we all depend on is a very sound approach to thinking about how to make sure our children and our children's children have a safe and healthy place to live.
John Alexander and Jamie Stevens are with the Klamath Bird Observatory based in Southern Oregon. Thank you both very much for the work that you do and for coming to tell us about it.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
IP assistant producer Dustin Fuentes will be back in a minute with guests from another part of Oregon who are bolstering environmental stewardship. Stay with us.
Klamath Bird Observatory's focus on boosting interest and understanding in Southern Oregon's environment is reflected up north by the Whole Earth Nature School, which offers nature-based programs for children of all ages. We're joined today by Matt Bradley, who is a founder of the Whole Earth Nature School and also a co-executive director, and a longtime student, Sasha MacArthur. You two, welcome to Immense Possibilities.
Hi, Dustin. Thanks for having us.
On your website, it states, we go beyond environmental education into what we call natural immersion. How does natural immersion differ from your typical environmental education experience?
If you look around the world, there are cultures all over the world for millennia that have managed to pass on the knowledge of how to live and how to have a good life without the use of books or blackboards or desks. And it's that sort of educational approach that we're taking here. So, we start with inspiration and we move to play. Play is a really essential part of our identity as humans. Do activities that really have no functional purpose and are just for enjoyment, right? And then, we kind of sneak some lessons in there. But the whole thing taken together is a completely immersive experience.
Sasha, you've been involved with the program for 6 years now. What does someone your age get from education in nature?
They get an involvement in the world that I don't think I or anybody else could really find at school or at work or in any of the stores, basically any of the buildings that we humans made these buildings, but the real world is outside. And when I'm outside, I get to learn about it. And when I learn about it, I learn and I love a struggling environment in my world and I want to help it. I feel really good when I'm outside. I feel like I'm a person, like there's some meaning to my life because it's exciting and it's very giving. And I don't get that same kind of, stimulation when I'm just reading a book or doing math homework. It's like I have a real life when I'm out there.
Sasha, do you have a favorite memory or experience that you've taken away from one of the programs that you've been involved with?
One of the most memorable is when I was doing a special program that was called Whole Earth Nature School Apprenticeship Program. And the last time, kind of a closing thing for the whole program, Matt and Anna and Reese took us 4 kids out for a day hike so that we could go out and just kind of hike and have lunch and then supposedly go home. What they didn't tell us is that they were going to make us stay overnight. Of course, they kind of sort of gave us an option to leave. And we were cold and miserable. And it was not a very pleasant physical experience, but I still had a lot of fun. And I still really enjoyed it, and it's very memorable, and I'm glad it happened. And I now know if I were put in a situation like that, I know how I would have reacted, or I know what to bring in the future.
Matt, in listening to some of the stories, some parents might be a little hesitant to send their kid out on one of these adventures because of the danger. What do you say to a parent who has those reservations?
The reality is that in our lives, we face dangerous situations every day, right? Risk is part of being alive. So our approach is to take kids out and give them a way to take risks in a safe and appropriate way so that they can learn what their boundaries are, so they can learn how to deal with these things appropriately. and deal with the fears that are associated with being in the woods.
Any suggestions, Matt, for viewers who might want to volunteer for this sort of work in their own communities?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that there are opportunities wherever you are. So when I talk to people who are excited about nature, oftentimes they are afraid to teach. They say, I don't know enough, and they don't feel confident in themselves. Know that being a mentor, being a strong, powerful guide for somebody doesn't mean having all the answers. Okay, instead, it often means just being right there along with them, showing curiosity, showing inspiration, helping to make observations and see where the next place is to go. You know, I don't have all the answers, but my talent lies and my skill lies in being able to be right in there on the adventure with the students so that we can be learning together. If you're able to be curious about the world, then you can teach somebody something.
Sasha, what do you see for the future? Has your education in the outdoors inspired you to maybe pursue the outdoors in your future?
Oh, yes. I believe it was last year that I firmly decided that I didn't want to go to college and I was going to work for Matt and Reese and Anna the rest of my life.
It's okay, you can still go to college.
Yeah, I figured, you know, it always changes, of course. I wanted to be a vet, and then I wanted to do this and this and that. But yeah, for the last couple of years, I started volunteering for summer camps and working with 6-year-olds, and that's been so much fun. And I've been getting better, and it's been a great learning experience for me. So.
Matt Bradley and Sasha MacArthur are with the Whole Earth Nature School in Eugene, Oregon. Matt and Sasha, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was a great pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for this edition of Immense Possibilities. You can find more information or send us suggestions at immensepossibilities.org or visit our Facebook page and like and share us there. Thanks for watching. I'm Jeff Golden. Until next time, please do what you can do. Thanks for watching to learn about tonight's Immense Possibility. You can watch any of our past programs anytime at immensepossibilities.org.